You ever find yourself in a moment where you know you should walk away, but instead, your feet stay rooted to the floor and your heart beats louder than your conscience? That's where my story begins. And maybe, just maybe, you'll understand why I let a single night change everything I thought I knew about myself. My name is Claire. I'm 42 years old, married for 16 years, the kind of life people from the outside would call steady, respectable, safe. And for the most part, it is. I wake up, make coffee, fold laundry, cook dinner, and go to bed beside a man who has loved me in his own quiet way. We don't fight, but we don't laugh much either. We coexist more than we live. At some point along the way, I stopped being seen, not as a woman, but as someone who still wanted to feel alive. And then came Ethan, my best friend Lisa's son. I've known him since he was a little boy. I babysat him once when Lisa had to work late. I brought him snacks after school. I watched him grow from an awkward teenager into a confident young man. I never thought of him in any way other than as my friend's kid. Until I did. It started so small I almost convinced myself I was imagining it. A glance that lingered too long. A casual compliment that felt heavier than it should have. The way he looked at me, not like I was older, not like I was off limits, but like I was someone worth noticing. The first time he said, "You look good today," I smiled and brushed it off. But the truth is, I replayed those words for hours. They stuck to me, clung to me in a way I couldn't shake. I should have pulled back. I should have reminded myself of the line I could never cross. But instead, I leaned into the small things. I found myself putting on perfume again, smoothing my hair before I knew I'd see him. I told myself it was nothing, just harmless attention that made me feel good. But harmless things have a way of growing. One summer evening, Lisa and I were sitting on the back porch with a bottle of wine, laughing about old memories. Ethan had just come home from college, taller, sharper, carrying himself with the kind of ease young men have when they don't realize how dangerous they've become to women like me. He disappeared inside, said he was tired. I thought nothing of it. Until later, when I went in to grab another blanket, and I found him in the guest room. He wasn't asleep. He was stretched out on the couch, shirtless, a book in his hand. He looked up at me, and for a second, neither of us moved. There was a shift, subtle but undeniable, the kind of shift you can't unsee once it happens. I could have turned around, could have mumbled an excuse, and walked away. Instead, I stood there, frozen in the doorway, my breath caught in my chest. He didn't say a word. He just set the book down, stood up, and walked closer. Slow. Careful. Like he was waiting for me to stop him. But I didn't. I couldn't. The moment he reached up and brushed a strand of hair from my face, my whole world tilted. I heard the faint clink of dishes from the kitchen. Lisa's still awake, washing up just 10 feet away. That should have snapped me out of it. It didn't. I stayed. I won't tell you the details, because that's not what this is about. What matters is the way my guard fell apart that night, how years of silence in my own marriage cracked open in the space of a single touch. Ethan's hand was unsure at first, like he couldn't believe I was letting it happen. And the truth is, I couldn't believe it either. I kept thinking, this is wrong. This is impossible. And yet, every time I should have said no, I said nothing. When it was over, I sat in the dark guest room, heart racing, my body still trembling, my thoughts a storm I couldn't control. I could hear Lisa moving around in the kitchen, her voice calling out casually, "Claire, you still up?" I swallowed hard and answered with a shaky, "Yeah, I'll be there in a minute." But my voice didn't sound like mine anymore. It sounded like someone else, someone who had crossed a line I could never uncross. The guilt came quick, sharp, and heavy. But so did something else. Something I hadn't felt in years. Desire. Attention. The reminder that I was still alive, still seen. And that terrified me more than the guilt. Because here's the truth. This didn't begin that night. It began months before. In every glance too long, every word unspoken, every time I let myself feel something I knew I shouldn't. That night was just the breaking point. I told myself it was a mistake, that I'd never let it happen again. But Mistakes don't vanish just because you name them. They linger. They whisper. They wait. The next time I saw Ethan, nothing was said. We acted normal around Lisa, like nothing had happened. But his eyes told a different story. And so did mine. It was like we had written something in invisible ink, and every time we were in the same room, it glowed between us. Every touch, every accidental brush of his hand against mine, every glance that lasted a second too long, it all carried weight. A dangerous, intoxicating weight. One evening, I caught my reflection in the mirror after he left. Same woman, same face. But something in my eyes had shifted. I looked alive again. And I hated how much I loved it. The worst part? He knew it too. He started showing up more. Little excuses. Helping with groceries. Fixing small things around the house. Always close, always present. Always dangerous. And each time, I told myself I wouldn't let it happen again. And each time, I let it get just a little closer. I know what you're thinking. That I'm reckless. That I've destroyed everything. That no friendship, no marriage, no life is worth this kind of risk. And maybe you're right. But when you've been unseen for so long, when your heart has been silent for years, the smallest spark can feel like fire. That night, the night that broke my guard, I realized something I've been afraid to admit even now. I wasn't just drawn to Ethan because of who he was. I was drawn to him because of what he gave me. He looked at me like I still mattered. Like I wasn't invisible. And I don't know if you've ever been invisible in your own life, but if you have, you'll understand why I stayed in that doorway, why I didn't walk away. I don't have a neat ending to give you. I wish I could say I cut it off and never looked back. But the truth is, the story didn't end that night. Some secrets don't scream. They whisper, quietly, every day. They haunt you in the way you check your phone, the way you glance across a room, the way your heart still remembers a touch you shouldn't have let happen. And so here I am, telling you this story, not because I'm proud of it, but because maybe you felt the same. Maybe you've craved something you shouldn't. Maybe you've crossed a line in silence and lived with the echo ever since. If so, you're not alone. Because sometimes the most dangerous affairs aren't the ones people find out about. They're the ones that live inside you forever. So tell me, what would you do if the one person you were supposed to protect became the one you couldn't stop wanting?